The power of the weaker partner. A protégé, as we have said, must be inferior to the protector, and must resemble him. If a Oman wants to enjoy the privileges of a protégé, she must be physically weaker and less intelligent than the man whose protection she is seeking. If she cannot meet these indispensable conditions naturally, she must try to simulate them. The other condition, physical resemblance, she cannot fulfill. The woman will therefore offer herself as a pseudo-child, an inadequate object for his protective instinct. She will try to become the object of his altruistic love. Her chief problem in so manipulating the man's basic instincts is how to make herself appear physically weaker than he. The typical woman is, after all, rather crudely made, with their big breasts, their broad hips and fleshy thighs. Most women resemble the matrons in certain paintings by Picasso rather than the fragile mannequins in the Vogue ads. Besides, women are known to be tougher than men. Statistically, infant mortality is far greater among boys than girls, and despite the fact that the female body suffers greater stress than the male from menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding, women in the civilized countries live on the average 5 to 7 years longer than men. This is probably so in consequence of the more comfortable life led by women. The physical inferiority of women is therefore a moot point, most pronounced in the area of muscle power, but not really demonstrable in other respects. For the sake of instinctual manipulation, this insignificant disadvantage must be vastly exaggerated, therefore, while her biological superiority in other respects must be minimized. The fact that women are never seen carrying heavy burdens, lifting or pushing weights, helps to advertise their muscular weakness. When they weep easily, at the slightest provocation, their tears remind the onlooker of their weaker nerves. By enveloping themselves in fine fabrics and by means of makeup, they can make themselves look fragile to the point of imminent physical breakdown. It is not so long since this kind of comedy was incomplete without simulated fainting fits. Women also prefer to be seen in the company of taller, older men. It underlines their simulated vulnerability. It all depends on exaggerating to the limit the existing physical difference between protector and protégé. The wise's greater physical resilience is her secret. By the time it becomes obvious, her provider is dead. In the USA, for instance, the widow survives her spouse on the average by 11 years. The Polygamous Sex, A Man's Right to the Other Woman by Esta Vilar. The power of the less intelligent partner. A woman's best trick in maneuvering herself under the man's protective wing, is her intellectual inferiority. The difference in physical strength alone would never do it. At most she might succeed, using all her efforts, in looking as helpless, next to him, as a Chinese next to a Swede, and this is far from enough to gain for a human adult the enjoyment of a child's privileges. Only when a woman is both physically weaker and sillier than he is, too, can she become irresistible to him. A woman who intends to find a lifelong provider will therefore see to it, as a top priority, that she does not become too intelligent. If she should slip up here, she will hide her light under the proverbial bushel at least long enough for the man to officially set his legal seal and signature on his intention to become her provider. Stupid is something one doesn't become, one merely has to stay that way. Today, it is scientifically established that healthy men and women, the poor and the rich, black and white, are all born with roughly the same mental capacities. This potential can be arrested in its growth through lack of fostering or through lack of competition. The former is caused by poverty and occurs among the lower classes. The latter is due to pampering and is reserved for women. Since marriage always means that the man must provide for the woman, and since most women decide even before puberty that they will get married later on, women are from the first exempt from the socio-economic competition for survival. They know that they will not have to know anything as adults, so they don't bother to learn anything. Admittedly, women in the past had to do even less to cultivate their mental inferiority than they do today. As long as most non-domestic labors required greater physical strength than they do nowadays, when men still lived by hunting, resolved differences of opinion by the sword, and built their houses by hand, it was natural to send the man and not the woman out to compete for survival, thus forcing him to develop his intelligence through experience. The woman was housebound, saddled with a growing brood, without practical means of birth control, pregnant the best part of her life, her sphere of work was hardly interchangeable with that of the man. But the situation has changed since then. In our industrialized countries there are few tasks left that exceed the physical capacities of women. Pregnancies can be regulated or avoided. Altogether, the family has shrunk in size. Since the invention of artificial mother's milk, men can feed the nurslings just as well as women. This means that women can now be the family providers for husbands and children, and become as accomplished, in competition with other providers, as the equality of the sexes calls for. The 2 or 3 pregnancies the average woman statistically goes through present no serious obstacle. Slick merely has to interrupt her breadwinning activities 2 or 3 times during her career, for about 4 weeks at a time. They would not even justify her avoidance of military service. Men and women nowadays can bear their equal share of virtually all the necessary social tasks. If women nevertheless want to go on being mentally inferior so as to enjoy the partner's protection, and they evidently do, they must resort to trickery. Since men can't very well be ordered to go to work for women every day on the grounds that they are physically stronger than women, men are brought up from infancy to believe that supporting a wife and family is the manly thing to do. They are programmed by mother to equate real manhood with becoming a family provider, in short. Since men do not bring up their own children personally, they cannot even up scores by teaching their daughters the opposite. The daughters consequently continue to grow up less intelligent than the sons. The only effort to move women into non-domestic occupations and thus do something for the growth of their intelligence is being made by the feminists. A real woman, they tell women, is one who realizes herself as a person. And she can do it only by working at a job, like a man. But most women won't fall for this line of argument. Women may be simpletons, but not the kind of simpletons the feminists take them for. To work at a job, like a man, means working to provide for a family, to take the whole responsibility. Both parents can't work simultaneously if there are children, it has to be he or she. That she is the one to shoulder the burden is what women have so far successfully avoided, even though all the professions have been open to women for nearly a half-century. So far not a single instance has come to light of a woman voluntarily devoting her life to supporting a healthy husband and their children single-handedly. A woman who works for a living nowadays does it either because she has no husband, or because her husband doesn't earn enough, or else she does it for her own entertainment, to get out of the house. Since the kind of work she does rarely involves genuine competition, she can manage to keep her intellectual inferiority intact. That most working women are employed in inferior positions is not due to man's oppression of women, but simply to the fact that by far the greatest number of women are work-shy and expect to work only for a time, hence they prepare themselves for a career, if at all, only half-heartedly. A woman who regards her job as a mere interlude between school and marriage is not the likeliest candidate for a responsible position. Nor is the one who works as a hobby, for something to do and doesn't really need the money. In the pinch, their male colleague is necessarily more dependable, because for him it is a serious matter to succeed. That the few women who do take their work seriously must suffer from this public image of the working woman is not the fault of men but of the majority of other women. How is an employer to know when he is dealing with one of those rare exceptions, among women, who take their work seriously and won't drop out at the first opportunity? Although the good old days are long gone, woman's continuing monopoly on breasts and vaginas still permits her to choose her own mental level. A woman is stupid because she wants to be stupid. A man is intelligent because he has to be intelligent. Putting it another way, a woman is a man who doesn't have to be a man is a woman who is not allowed to be a woman. If men had the same options, they would be just as stupid as women choose to be. Some initiae fail to see this cause-and-effect syndrome and regard women with contempt for their stupidity. This is understandable. It isn't easy to face up to the fact that their all-around utility is all they are wanted for, which is why they developed it to begin with. Women don't mind being considered to be rather stupid. In fact, it helps their game. Women could be intelligent if they wanted to be. The proof of this lies in the fact that they not only don't seek to hide their mental inferiority but rather flaunt it. It is part of a woman's ploy in acquiring a male protector. Only women with a decidedly male sense of values would find it intolerable to be considered mentally under-equipped. But such women are rare, because they would have had to be brought up by their fathers. They would have had to have a mother willing to be the family breadwinner for at least 10 years.